Hello again, everybody, and welcome back. It is Wes with Pikes Peak Trades giving you the weekend stock market video for trading that ended April 9th, 2021. What an incredible week it was, a week that just saw a relentless move up in the S&P 500, a significant move up in tech. We saw a move up, but then a little bit of a pullback in IWM, and I want to talk you through what I'm seeing right now, where we're at with respect to the most bullish counts, also respecting some potential divergence that is still in place. So we're looking at SPX weekly, and based on my primary count that you see in black, it should not actually be so surprising why we just kept moving up. That I have this within a minute 3, within a minor 5, within an intermediate 3 of a cycle 3. So we are still talking about a very, very bullish sequence, and we're kind of right in the middle of these sets of threes within this intermediate wave. Now, because of the conditions that we're seeing and the possibility of just a continued extension of the moves, I need to include the possibility that we see something just quite amazing. Is it possible that we see the SPX to 5,000 by 2021? And in the context of what I'm projecting, for instance, for the Nasdaq, so this is a very conservative extension for a count that I have had the Nasdaq in, where this intermediate wave did not lap this one. Now, let me try to bring this all together. The reason why I'm jumping now back to the Qs is because this wave here did overlap the top of this wave 1. Now, by my projection, that is allowed because I do think it's okay if that occurs within a fifth wave, in this case an intermediate fifth. However, due to that being a little bit contentious among waivers and trying to match this with not only the possibility of an SPX extension, but matching it with this count in Nasdaq, is it possible that we're in a super bullish 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2 within QQQ? And that would align all of these counts, including IWM, into just an incredible, incredible next few months in the stock markets. Okay, now, with that said, because of how overbought we also are, and the obvious continued divergence here, this is QQQ, negative divergence on the weekly. It still hasn't surpassed a weekly RSI above levels from February, from the end of December, and certainly from its highs in late August 2020. We still have to respect the possibility that the rubber band has just been stretched so tight, it's about ready to break. So you will see the continuation of the bearish red counts on my charts. However, given where I think we're at in the wave count, the technicals, the fundamentals, the easy money fed, the huge amount of money supply, and what we see is pretty monstrous demand for stocks, I think it is much, much more likely that if we see something surprising, it's surprising to the upside. Okay, so let me drop back here to the SPX weekly, and you're going to see it within that progressive set of threes back into the daily, and you're going to notice a daily candle on Friday that pushed up and through this increasing bull channel that had really captured price pretty well all the way since November 2020. I have that within a sub-degree 3 of this 3 of the minute 3. And it is absolutely possible that this wave 3 just continues. But given how overbought we are, and I'm looking down here at this RSI 9, approaching 80 in the S&P 500 is extremely rare. We did see it for an extended period of days at the end of August 2020 that preceded a major top. I'm not saying we're looking for a major top. But I am saying that readings this high, if they continue into the early part of the week, there will be a snapback pullback. I'm leaving the possibility it actually happens early in the week, that we just need to see a little cooling off. Maybe we need to see price retreat back to some key moving averages. And here, by what I'm counting, if that happens on Monday, would be around, let's say, 40.50 to 40.60 in the S&P. Now, taking it into the short term, want to leave the possibility that either this typical fib at 41.50-ish, or maybe even a move up Monday and Tuesday to that nice round number of 4,200, that would actually hit the top of this channel. Certainly possible, and would certainly keep it well within my eventual target of about 42.75 for this subdegree wave 3. Okay, now into tech. Big recovery and move up over the last couple weeks in QQQ. Not quite a new all-time high, but very close. And into the daily on the Qs, we're seeing an extension, this 2.618, that I really should have just trusted. I should have just trusted that these fibs, they're there because they're most probable, and it hit it right on Friday. So would we now be ready for that subdegree pullback? And that's what I think could happen if we see some weakness on Monday. I'm not calling for anything big. So could it be sharp? Yeah, but would it be quick? Probably. Something just to pull price back towards this rising moving average cluster. Now, I had mentioned that very bullish nested 1-2, and I think in order to make that puzzle fit, I think we need to see a little bit of a deeper pullback. So here's kind of the irony of that. Sometimes deeper pullbacks actually can gather more fuel for even greater moves up. And that could be the case here if we see QQQ pullback beneath this typical wave 4 fib all the way back, let's say, into the low 320s. Otherwise, is it possible that this wave 3 just moves up and hits the next fib? It absolutely could. And then we would just keep extending up the fibs from there. But again, notice there is really quite overbought conditions as this daily RSI moves above 70 now for 3 days in a row. Into the short term, you'll see that counted here. And in that short term, we're going to notice divergence across the 60-minute MACD and RSI. That's going to be something very consistent we're going to see. Typically, that divergence, it wears itself off with a pullback. And this actually counts really well from a subdegree perspective. Here we have this micro 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Even within this last stretch, here we have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on that divergence. When I see a completed 5-wave move of any degree that it's in, when I see 60-minute divergence, that's when I'm really on alert for the pullback. And so if we see it, I think it would be an ABC, probably something fairly significant for a degree 4, and because this one was a little bit shallow. Okay, so maybe we actually see it drawn out over a couple of days. Okay, now I do want to talk about also futures here. So futures, putting in here, again, the 60-minute divergence, the Nasdaq Futures did not actually make a new high on Friday. So if you look at that as a contrarian indicator, it's possible that we've already seen 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 downs to the A leg and the B leg, and then maybe futures Sunday night already opened down, and that's what's going to lead us into that possible degree correction. Otherwise, it is absolutely possible that this 3 just continues to extend. And if that's the case, then this 3 and this 4, they just move up, and we're just going to continue marching up towards the next fib. In the ES futures, you're going to notice here what I call double divergence. So from this high on April 5th through this high On the 8th, all the way through the high on the 9th, we're seeing progressively lower RSI and MACD readings. And that stretched out over a calendar week. It's pretty typical of a pullback that is ready to happen. So a move up in futures that pops up to this line, to this top line, maybe 41.30, that could actually be what's needed to kind of move it up and pop it back and begin potentially the sub-degree pullbacks that I'm seeing. Let's look at IWM on the weekly. So IWM did what it needed to do on Friday to get it to close just above its 8-week EMA. It had spiked down beneath it during the week. We do kind of see continued divergence as prices moved up in early 2021. But to align it with the other counts, here's a wave 3 within a wave 3, and it's also projecting out to some very bullish targets looking forward. The possibility, because it has not yet reached an all-time high, is that it has already topped. Again, I think that is pretty low probability. Into the daily here on IWM, it is very possible that this low on Thursday already marked its degree 2 low. And so if we see just a blast off, then that's going to be the count that it's in here a wave 3 of 3 of 3. My short-term charting actually has it still needing that C leg. Okay, so if you made me make a bet with hard-earned money, if I had to pick a direction, I'm going to actually lean down for Monday. Okay, but of course, leaving in the possibility that when you're in these nested 3 counts, a lot of times the surprises just continue to be to the upside. Okay, XLF financials continue to show strength. We did have an all-time weekly closing high on XLF. You just can't get overly bearish the markets when financials are not selling off. So the projection here is that this B wave bear top is very low in probability as compared to just a continued grind higher. Okay, into some of our individual names. So here into Apple. Wonderful week for Apple. And I have it within this wave 3 of 3. So projecting continued upside movement in Apple. We look now on the daily chart, and we're going to see Apple almost closed this bear down gap from Feb 16 to Feb 17. So I wouldn't be surprised if Monday we get that pop to actually close that gap all the way before we could try to see any kind of pullback. Just like the S&P, just like Q's, Apple's daily RSI is extremely overbought. Overbought conditions can continue for a while. Eventually they will pull back. I do have for Apple the importance of it for the intermediate term needing to get beyond about 137. It's got to get above this 1.618 fib in order for us to try to rule out the possibility that this is actually maybe just part of a corrective move. If it is, I think we see a deeper pullback to set this A, B, and then one last move up in C. Okay, I had tweeted this out about the Apple 60-minute RSI above 90. And the previous cases, the 2 immediate previous cases that have happened recently, triggered big sell-offs. But the other one occurred right after its earnings report in late July 2020. And then in August, I think we remember what happened. We just saw moonshots in tech names. So I actually am leaning towards that to be the case, but also around those dates in July 31st and August 3rd of 2020, we saw volatility. So I do think we could see a pullback. We could see a move up another degree 4 before we could really then see just continued upside movement in Apple. Eventually, I have a target of 170 to 180 for Apple. Okay, other names that have just been in these names you can't ignore. They're so weighted towards our indices. If we're going to see the indices where I think we got to talk about these names. And we have Amazon. So up almost 7% on the week, just blew right through this declining resistance line. I have Amazon in also a wave 3. I've got it in a minor 3 here. We can take a look at its daily chart. And on its daily chart, it's very similar to Apple. So has it reached a fib extension? Will it pull back? A pullback move to backtest that breakout that you saw on the weekly here on the daily would be an awesome entry. And I would just love to see the possibility of that occurring before I think we see some of these names move up and maybe pull back into their late April, early May earnings. And because of that super bull count that you saw me show earlier in Qs, we have to leave the possibility of a super bull count in something like Amazon, where we don't see much of a pullback at all. And in that case, I'm projecting that it goes very nearly straight upwards to something pretty surprising in the 37 to 3800s, with only small pullbacks along the way. Into the short term, you're going to see here on Amazon, you're going to see that divergence that I've been citing. We have a week's worth of divergence on both MACD and RSI, overthrow of potentially this bull channel. Could that then be what we see with this back test? So this rail here is the same resistance that was broken that now could be support for Amazon on any back testing move early in the week. Continuing to roll through our names here, we get into Facebook. It had an overthrow of this bull channel here, and I've got that also within a minor 3. Facebook had done a lot of its work earlier as opposed to the other names. I think it is much closer to a more significant top. In fact, this top could already be in. So if we do see pullback on Monday, Facebook might have already set that top, and it could just be a little bit ahead for that pullback. But when we get into the short term, I'm still leaving the possibility that it's not that significant, that it's just gonna be that sub-degree wave 4 before we see it around maybe 320 before a more significant move. So into Google. And Google is also one that really has just set quite rare readings. There's no divergence at all on the weekly RSI. It's blown through this resistance rail almost to the 2300. So I've had to extend my fibs on Google and now calling for, if we get this progressive bull movement, something close to 2600. Now that might just seem crazy to you, but from a percentage basis, it's actually not. It's actually not that crazy for us to see it. Now from a daily perspective on Google, some eye-popping readings here. It's RSI above 84. And the last few times that it's happened, July 26, 2019, January 16 to 23rd, 2020, August 26 and September 2nd, August 28 and September 2nd, 2020. And I think we remember what happened around some of those dates. We did see big pullbacks. So this rubber band has been quite stretched in Google. I'm not calling for the kinds of pullbacks that we saw in the COVID crash era or the big September correction, but I'm just highlighting the fact that we are seeing some nosebleed area overbought readings. Okay, so Google's pullback, I think, would just allow price to pull back to catch up to these MAs. I still think it would be within a bullish progression, but we have to be on the lookout for anything when we see the potential of movement one way or another. Okay, so a few more of the big tech names. We've got Microsoft. So Microsoft, I think is putting in here an ending diagonal, which means I'm seeing this last move as a three-wave move. Microsoft has counted so well on sub-degree waves. You'll see it here on the daily. I think we've got a 1, 2, and then a 1, 2, 3, 4 to complete 5 into this 3. And so like Google, I've got it similar, of a similar degree, just looking for a pullback to get price to catch up to these MAs. And on the short term, you're just going to see how really, really well Microsoft is counted. So here's that sub-degree 1, 2. Here is your really bullish impulse. That's your 3 of 3 wave here. Absolutely where we should expect the highest RSI and MACD readings. But now, here over the last week, we've got double divergence. And just by what I have seen repeatedly happen from pattern and probability perspective, I think the upside's limited. I think it's come just an overthrow of this 1.62 fib. And so could we just see a cooling off here early in the week? I think it would be an ABC pullback, and that would align with the possibilities of what you're seeing on these other names. So let's look into now Tesla. Tesla not participating strongly like the rest of the market, and you could view that as well. It's just going to catch up next week, or you could view it as I think I might be viewing it, that it's kind of actually indicating that it needs a little bit more down movement. So here on the weekly, I do still think we can set up for a big move back to new all-time highs. We look into the daily and the short term, and I see a pullback that's not quite done. So here I don't have it labeled, but an ABC, I think down to about 650 to retest its breakout of its bear channel, a lot like what I just showed with Amazon. And then showing you that here into the short term, there would be some double support confluence here, right at that 650 area. Now, obviously, if it breaks up and out of this potential bear flag, then you've got to look at that as continuation. And because we would say at that point there's some making up to do, you probably want to get on that train. But I think I'm leaning towards that testing touch. That would be the entry that I would want. Want to show you 3 more names that I really like here. We've got Netflix, Nvidia, and Roku. Netflix this week up and out of this bull flag. That is super positive for Netflix. Looking into its daily, here's that move out. Really strong move. It's in a great bullish progression. Again, it's a 3 of 3 of 3, and we could see continuation. I have that potentially just continuing. It's possible that this fib is actually in place, that it's a 1.272 fib, and we do see a pullback, but leaving in the possibility if markets just move up, Netflix could be one that helps lead the way. Nvidia. So I've got Nvidia working here to finish out a primary 3 move. You're going to see it into its progression and a 1-2 minor degree already in place. Where are we at in the next set? So is this top channel hit going to give us a pullback? If it is, it's probably just going to let the moving averages catch up. And here into the short term, you can see maybe this top rail here is going to hold for the pullback. If not, we've got to just consider that we've got an extended move where this 3 goes here, this 4 goes here, and it's going to move to challenge the very top of this horizontal pivot, which is just below 600. Okay, last one here for now is Roku. Back-to-back amazing weeks. Roku is up over 20% over the last 2 weeks. Where is it in its progression? A lot like Nvidia, I think possibly a 1-2. So would we see kind of this rail contain price and then into the short term? If not, and this is just consolidation above, then I've got to look at a relabeling, something that's much, much more bullish. Okay, so I hope you learned some things. Hope you see some things that were interesting. I'm certainly very, very, very excited to see what happens on Monday. I do think the potential there of a binary move, big up or big down, is in place. If it's down, again, I think it's going to get bought, but we just have to pay attention. These extremely overbought conditions are quite rare. Can they persist? Yes, but like that stretched rubber band, there will eventually be a pullback. But I think these pullbacks will be confident buying opportunities. So look forward to interacting with you again over the weekend on Twitter. Thank you for the likes, the comments. Thank you for the feedback. It's just an incredible market environment that we're in, and I think we can expect a little more craziness over the next weeks to months.